In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, December 7th, Israeli soldiers and Hamas militants are engaged in brutal battles in the southern city of Khan Younis, and to stave off a humanitarian catastrophe, the head of the United Nations has invoked a rare article urging for an immediate ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Korean economy appears to be merging out of the doldrums on the back of chip exports. But domestic spending and investment remain sluggish amid the country's high interest rates. And authorities here are seeking to secure steady supplies of urea by diversifying its import markets amid uncertainty over shipments from neighboring China that 2 years ago triggered a severe logistics disruption. We start in Gaza, where Israeli forces and Hamas militants are engaged in some of the most violent confrontations in the southern city of Khan Younis, while the head of the United Nations invokes an article for the first time in 34 years to avert a humanitarian catastrophe. Our Ising has the latest.
Fighting intensified in southern Gaza on Wednesday as the Israel Defense Forces reached the heart of the city of Khan Younis. The Israeli military says its tanks made their way to the center of Khan Younis, and it engaged in what they said was some of the fiercest fighting of the war. Israeli offensives at the largest city of southern Gaza means thousands are now fleeing further south. Strikes were also reported in Rafah, where Gazans were told to flee by Israel. Upon reaching Khan Younis, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Wednesday that Israeli forces have surrounded the home of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar, saying he is hiding underground.
Yesterday I said that our forces could reach anywhere in the Gaza Strip. Today we are encircling Sinwar's house. His house may not be his fortress and he can escape, but it's only a matter of time before we get him.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Wednesday invoked the rarely used Article 99 of the UN Charter to push for a ceasefire and formally warned the Security Council of a global threat from the armed conflict. In a letter to the UNSC, Guterres wrote that the armed conflict may aggravate existing threats to international peace and security. He added that he invoked Article 99 to bring to the attention of the Security Council any matter which, in his position, may threaten the maintenance of international peace and security. The UN chief went on to say that the world is facing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system, with the situation fast deteriorating into a catastrophe with potentially irreversible implications for Palestinians as a whole and for peace and security in the region. According to UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric, the article has not been used for decades. 이승재, Arirang News.
And the plight of ordinary people in Gaza was also addressed by heads of the G7 framework, who also condemned North Korea's recent satellite launch and sought action against Russia amid its invasion of Ukraine. Our Yunjin reports.
The leaders of the group of 7 countries, including the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Canada, Italy, and Japan, held a virtual meeting on Wednesday to address some pressing international issues. The leaders strongly condemned North Korea's November 21st spy satellite launch, as well as suspected arms transfers to Russia, which directly contravene UN Security Council resolutions banning the North from conducting any launch, using ballistic missile technology, and engaging in any arms trade. The G7 leaders also reiterated their call for the complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement of all North Korea's weapons of mass destruction and ballistic missiles. During their virtual talks, the leaders were also joined by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and in a show of solidarity, agreed to a new import ban on Russian diamonds. According to the statement, under the new measures, G7 leaders will introduce restrictions on non-industrial diamonds from Russia by January 1st to curtail revenue that Russia can use to fund its war with Ukraine. The move is expected to be followed by another phase of restrictions on the import of Russian diamonds processed in third countries, with March 1st set as a target date for its implementation. The policy includes plans to introduce a robust traceability-based verification and certification mechanism for rough diamonds by September 2024. The G7's ban on Russian gems, however, does not include diamonds for industrial use, nor the tracing of polished stones. On the Israel-Hamas war, G7 leaders urged for the immediate release of all remaining hostages without preconditions. They added that more effective action is needed to limit the displacement of mass numbers of civilians, also expressing support for further pauses in the fighting to get more aid to address the deteriorating humanitarian crisis in Gaza. To end further bloodshed, G7 leaders reaffirmed their support for a two-state solution that would enable both Israelis and Palestinians to live in a just, lasting, and secure peace. 이은진, Arirang News.
In other news, amid its ambition to become a leading arms exporter by the year 2027, Korea will place priority on 5 key arenas. They include space, AI, integrated manned as well as unmanned systems, semiconductors and robotics. Intentions to this end were shared during the second meeting on Korea's defense export strategy on this Thursday at Hanwha Aerospace in Gyeonggi-do Province. President Yoon also touched upon the importance of ensuring a secure supply chain for semiconductors and other materials to allow the defense industry sustainable and solid growth, adding that related talks will be held during his state visit to the Netherlands next week. Following this morning's meeting, President made his way to LIG Next One to engage with young professionals, underscoring their role in shaping the future of K-defense. And the Korean economy appears to be emerging out of the doldrums on the back of exports. Now, this is according to a state-run think tank that adds domestic spending and investment, however, remains sluggish. Our An Sung-jin has more on its assessment.
Despite a slowdown in domestic demand, South Korea's recent economy has been slowly recovering, driven by the chip industry and exports. November's monthly trend report from the economic think tank, the Korea Development Institute, said on Thursday that the continuing high interest rates pulled down consumption and investment in equipment. Retail sales saw a greater on-year decline for most consumer goods, including automobiles, home appliances, food, and clothing. As consumer spending dampened, the Consumer Sentiment Index also fell by nearly 1% on-year, suggesting a possible continued sluggish consumption. However, as international oil prices fell, the pace of inflation has been gradually easing. Overall industrial production for October saw moderate growth of 1% on-year, despite fewer working days and a slowdown in sectors relying on domestic demand. Industrial production was mostly pulled up by high growth in the chip industry as chip prices started to rise. This on the back of a rise in demand for the latest smartphone models and AI server products. The boom in chip exports pushed November's total exports up 7.8% from the same month last year. Exports of chips were up 12.9% on-year. Automobile exports were also up by 21.5%. By country, the trade value of exports to the United States continued an upward trend, from a 17.3% on-year increase in October to a 24.7% increase in November. And the on-year decline in exports to China shrank from negative 9.6% in October to negative 0.2% in November. The trade balance improved from a surplus of $1.63 billion to a surplus of $3.8 billion, as the exports maintained a moderate growth and imports declined. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Also, Korea is working to ensure that its supplies of urea remain stable by seeking to diversify its import markets amid uncertainty over shipments from China. Our Park Go-nu has details.
South Korea will double its public reserves of urea used in diesel vehicles and seek countries to import it from in order to cope with potential shortages due to China's recent restrictions on urea exports. During a pan-government key economic security items task force meeting on Wednesday, the government said it will be increasing the inventory of urea from 6,000 to 12,000 tons and provide 2,000 tons beforehand to industries where supply is tight. The government also said it will look for other supply channels for urea, including Saudi Arabia, where discussions are being made, as well as Qatar, Indonesia, and Japan. It also said it would provide subsidies to companies that import urea from countries other than China, the world's largest producer of the material, as shipping expenses can be 10 to 20% higher when importing from other countries. The government said it will continue to consult with China to solve the issue. Meanwhile, the government will also ask gas stations to set purchase limits of urea at gas stations to prevent panic buying, although some gas stations already have such measures in place. Despite efforts being made to combat possible urea shortages, the South Korean government said the situation is not as serious as the last urea solution crisis 2 years ago. It explained there is at least a 3-month usable reserve left and other supply channels in place to cope with the issue. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, global oil prices lost further ground on Wednesday local time amid greater U.S. inventory and a Chinese market slowdown. On the New York Stock Exchange, West Texas Intermediate surrendered some 4% to settle at $69.38 a barrel, dropping below $70 for the first time in 5 months. Over in London, Brent crude also fell nearly 4% to $74.30 a barrel. Prices dropped despite plans by OPEC Plus to slash oil production in the first quarter of 2024. The New York Times has tapped President Yoon and K-pop girl group NewJeans among its 71 most stylish people of the year 2023. Sharing an image of President Yoon singing American Pie during his U.S. state visit back in April, the Daily described his, quote, pitch-perfect performance at the White House, adding that it was worthy of an American Idol. K-pop sensation NewJeans was also honored, with the paper claiming the group had a sound inspired by late 90s and early 2000s R&B. NewJeans was also the first female K-pop act to play at Lollapalooza. Retailers in the country are seeking to better accommodate their foreign customers by making their shopping experience fun and convenient. Our Ian He was out and about.
South Korean retailers are revamping their stores to provide special services at branches frequented by global visitors. This comes as the number of foreign visitors is showing a recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Korea Tourism Organization, there were more than 1.2 million visitors to the country this October. That's almost 160% more than in the same month last year. One branch of a major supermarket chain created a special section in September named Must-Haves of Korea. This store has a special K-food zone with the most popular products purchased by foreign customers in one place. According to store officials, before the pandemic, nearly half of the sales at this branch came from foreign customers, but this dropped to as low as 1% of sales during the pandemic. The sales from foreign customers have recovered to around 30% as of August this year. The branch also provides a luggage storage service, currency exchange, and tax refund machines, and its international shipping service resumed in May.
I came from Europe for a few days, and I'm sending it from here because in order to bring a big suitcase, there was a very big fee.
One of South Korea's main health and beauty chains has reopened its largest branch in the country, located in Myeongdong, one of the most popular areas for tourists. This branch welcomes around 3,000 customers every day, with about 90% of them being foreign customers. It was recently renovated with a focus on introducing a wider range of brands to foreign customers and creating opportunities for the chain to expand globally.
So I think it's pretty foreigner-friendly. Compared to my experiences in other countries, I would say it's pretty organized. It's like by brand and by like the specific product that you're looking for, and they really help you.
The K-Beauty Now zone features emerging K-beauty brands, and the store is arranged so products in high demand from foreign customers, such as face masks and sunscreens, are at the front of the store. A specialized mobile website provides a multilingual guide service, including the map of the store and the location of popular brands. At the Global Service Lounge, visitors can use the tax refund service, which saves them a step at the airport. According to store officials, from January to October this year, its branches in Myeongdong area have seen an about 840% increase of sales to foreign customers compared with the same period last year. They added that this year they also saw customers from a wider range of countries, with more customers from English-speaking countries and from Southeast Asia and Japan. Ian Hee, Arirang News.
Also on the local front, among the many outstanding solutions to address daily concerns this year is a system that ensures indoor air quality. Our Chong-Won explains.
Many innovative inventions were showcased at an exhibition recently held in Seoul. A machine that can simultaneously measure indoor pollution and control the release of sterilizers was chosen as the most outstanding invention of the year. The machine looks like an air purifier, but its shape can vary depending on the space it controls. Inside the machine, 9 sensors detect temperature, humidity, volatile organic compounds, and ammonia, among others. The figures measured by these sensors are sent to the control unit, allowing the system to determine indoor air pollution levels. If the figures are high, the machine automatically releases environmentally friendly sterilizers and pesticides.
We have developed a platform that can predict air quality by measuring bioaerosols with 9 sensors.
The concentration of fine dust inside train or subway tunnels is at serious levels because these tunnels lack a ventilation system, unlike car tunnels. This invention removes dust inside train tunnels and reduces noise levels. The electricity consumption is as low as that needed to power a smartphone. The device can also self-clean automatically.
Dust particles in the air become polarized, and the inside of the dust collector is the opposite polarization. So when the dust passes through, it sticks to the collector.
This sensor measures ultraviolet rays, the main culprit behind skin aging and skin cancer. It can accurately measure the amount of ultraviolet rays regardless of the angle at which light enters. Being in a compact chip form, it can be applied to smartphone and cars. These are technologies that have received the highest evaluation among numerous inventions this year.
It's meaningful for companies to continue to innovate through technology, prevent technology leakage, and focus on protecting it.
The exhibition also featured new technologies to prepare for climate change. A type of fringe moss was altered to survive up to 100 days without water and attached to walls to reduce fine dust and become a natural air purifier while emitting clean oxygen. There's also technology to recycle leftover coffee grounds from coffee shops. By mixing them with plastic raw materials or decomposing and reprocessing them, they become colorful, versatile new materials. 정은주, Arirang News.
Korea's transformation from a war-torn country in dire need of global assistance to a thriving economy that aims to become a global pivotal state is a story of much inspiration for its less developed counterparts. Now, this is according to an official at a UN Development Center here in Seoul. Our Lee Si-hoo sat down with her.
South Korea is the first country to have gone from being a recipient of official development assistance to being an ODA donor. And it happened in just 60 years. Ulrika Modéer, the Assistant Secretary General and Director of the Bureau of External Relations and Advocacy of the United Nations Development Program, says that South Korea's development journey is an inspiring story for many countries today.
When Korea engages in international development cooperation with the UN, it can speak to its own experience. And that gives a lot of trust as we build relations. And trust is something that is very much needed in the world of today as well, because there is an increasing lack of trust between North and South, East and West, with shifting geopolitics as well.
And what's particular about South Korea's cooperation is its long-standing commitment to helping those who are marginalized.
So many times when we see Korean engagement, it's support to people who live with disabilities in or because of conflict and war, like in Ukraine, for instance, or female victims of gender-based violence, which is also support that we get from Korea in work in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's really also to look for those who may live in the margins in the most conflict-affected or poor countries, not to leave anyone behind on it.
While many of today's conflicts need political solutions, assistance and aid can play a key role in preventing future conflicts.
We also believe that we need to invest much more in prevention. Some conflicts may not be able to prevent, but many of them actually are. And here I also believe that this increasing engagement on behalf of Korea in the international development cooperation and the focus of prevention will be really key.
Modéer says there's a need for more countries to believe in the impact of international development cooperation.
I believe here the investments that Korea is doing in international development cooperation is making change every day, whether in Ukraine or Laos DPR or in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But it's also bringing countries together in this belief that we are one humanity and we only have one Earth, and we have to work together to solve many of these problems.
The UN Development Program will discuss with South Korea its continued engagement, especially in the potential of digital sustainable development. 이시후, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. At least 3 people have been killed in a shooting in Las Vegas. Local police have said the suspected shooter has also been killed. The shooting on Wednesday at the University of Nevada is still being investigated, and police say the number of victims could rise. The previous day in Texas, a day-long series of attacks in Austin and San Antonio left 6 dead and at least 3 wounded. Police have arrested the suspected Texas shooter and identified him as a 34-year-old Shane James. James has been charged with capital murder for allegedly shooting and killing 4 people, as well as shooting 2 police officers with a large-caliber handgun. 2 more bodies were found later in San Antonio, which were identified as James's parents, and James is the main suspect in these deaths. Google's parent company, Alphabet, unveiled on Wednesday its most advanced artificial intelligence model, Gemini. It is capable of processing different forms of data, such as video, audio, and text, allowing for a more advanced reasoning and understanding compared to Google's previous AI technology. According to Google, Gemini Ultra, the top-performing version of Gemini, outperforms its competitor, OpenAI's most advanced AI model, GPT-4. A part of the Gemini model has been added to Google's pre-existing AI assistant, Bard, on Wednesday. Pop star Taylor Swift received another accolade on Wednesday as Time magazine named her its Person of the Year. The 33-year-old star, who broke box office records with her Eras tour and is hailed as boosting the economy of every city she visits, told Time that "This is the proudest and happiest I've ever felt, and the most creatively fulfilled and free I've ever been." Time magazine also noted that Taylor Swift is the first person from the arts to be honored for her success as an entertainer. Kim Si-young, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's Daeseol today. It's supposed to snow a lot around this time, but instead we are enjoying clear blue skies with warmer than average temperatures. Well, there was a sharp drop in ratings this morning, but figures were warmer than average, and highs are rising fast, and it will stay warmer than norms through the rest of December. The East Coast, however, continues to be a fire-prone region with both dry and wind advisories in place. Drink plenty of water to stay hydrated, and fire safety should come first, please. A chilly start is turning into a fine afternoon with highs going up a couple of degrees higher this afternoon in most places. A good day for a short stroll. The warming trend continues for the next 5 days, and Seoul could see a high of 16 degrees Celsius tomorrow afternoon under mostly sunny skies, and surprisingly, air quality will be decent tomorrow as well. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And on that note, we end our Thursday afternoon newscast. But do stay with us for our daily panel session today as we address mounting concerns on the Korean Peninsula and more. Thank you for now.